Yesterday, while doing the show, I mentioned that because I drank so much the other day, I was still a little out of it. So, I could only discuss a simple topic, the Fengqiao model. This was a concept introduced during Mao's Cultural Revolution, which primarily reflects the use of the general public to carry out the government's public security objectives. Today, after resting at home for most of the day, I still feel a bit tipsy. Chinese liquor is quite strong. After 2 days, I'm still buzzed. Hence, I can only talk about a simple topic today as well. I'm going to discuss the upcoming Xi-Biden meeting. Speaking of the Xi-Biden meeting, I posted about it 2 months ago. I mentioned the November APEC summit in San Francisco, predicting that Xi Jinping would attend and meet with President Biden. Many were skeptical when I made this prediction. They pointed out that Xi didn't attend the G20 and was going to continue to isolate himself. They questioned whether he would really attend APEC and if Biden would even meet with him. My predictions, however, turned out to be correct. Many say I'm quite adept at analyzing domestic issues, having been a domestic investigative journalist for years, but they find me lacking in political news analysis. They think my political analysis is off because my conclusions often don't align with their expectations, making it hard for them to accept my perspective. So they end up perceiving my skills as inferior. But from my point of view, my analyses are all based on facts and logic. So let's start talking about the Xi-Biden meeting today. This time, China is placing significant importance on the Xi-Biden meeting. You can see this from the Chinese Foreign Ministry's official announcements stating Xi Jinping is attending the meeting in San Francisco upon Biden's invitation. Although it's not a state visit or an official visit, just a meeting, it's still the lowest level of head of state meetings in China. They mentioned Xi's participation in the APEC summit, but everyone knows the Xi-Biden meeting was arranged first, and then they decided whether he would attend APEC. Logically, it should be said that Xi is going to San Francisco for APEC and will meet with President Biden on the side. But China's narrative reverses this, highlighting the importance they place on the Xi-Biden meeting over APEC. In San Francisco, Chinese authorities have already started various preparations. Local Chinese Americans and overseas Chinese have received notifications through various means. They are expected to welcome Xi Jinping this Wednesday with banners and slogans. These people are being paid and provided with bus transportation, currently for overseas Chinese. Without this financial incentive, it's unlikely that they would welcome Xi Jinping. But for money, they are willing to. This is one side of the story. It's crucial to create a scene where Xi Jinping is widely welcomed by patriotic Chinese Americans upon his arrival in San Francisco. Domestically, the situation is similar. If you look at the last few weeks, Xinhua and People's Daily have already started publishing articles emphasizing the need to stabilize China-US relations. They are advocating for the development of China-US relations from the viewpoint of taking responsibility for the entire globe and its people. Xinhua also talked about 5 discussions on how China-US relations can return to normal. These articles all convey the same message. The China-US relationship is going to be the most important relationship in human history for the next 50 years, and it must not be mishandled. Otherwise, it would be disastrous for everyone, the US, and slightly less so for China. Similarly, the Foreign Ministry spokesman Mao Ning responded to a question yesterday about Xi Jinping's visit to the US for a China-US presidential meeting. She stated that the Chinese side has announced that the leaders will discuss strategic, comprehensive, and directional issues concerning China-US relations, as well as major issues related to world peace and development. China adheres to Xi Jinping's principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation in handling China-US relations. Competition among world powers does not align with the current global trend and cannot solve America's own problems or the world's challenges. China is not afraid of competition, but opposes defining China-US relations as one that is competitive. China does not fear competition, but China-US relations should not be defined by it. This is unprecedented. The US has always defined its relationship with China as competitive, but China says it's not about competition, it's about cooperation, mutual development, and friendship. The domestic public opinion is being manipulated, including the editorials by People's Daily. People understand what this means. We should not hate America for now. Xi Jinping even said it himself. He says he has always been promoting friendly relations between China and the United States. Think about it. Xi Jinping bought a new house in the United States. So, you can clearly see that the entire atmosphere of people's opinion has already changed. It is said that there are 3 tribute films about the Korean War, such as Battle of Triangle Hill and The Flag of War as a Painting, which recently can no longer be aired. Maybe they will never even be able to be shown in the future. So what is CCTV broadcasting? It's broadcasting a film where American soldiers saved by China end up kissing female soldiers from the 8th Route Army. Think about it. If American soldiers and female soldiers from the 8th Route Army are kissing, that's conveying a relationship between lovers. So you can see China is now trying to create a cheerful and benign atmosphere for this round of Xi-Biden meetings. It's clear as day. Everyone can see it. But there's a problem. Do you remember at the beginning of the year, People's Daily wrote 9 articles in a row commenting on Sino-US relations. They were full of hostility, saying that the US is hegemonic and China will not heed its calls. China has grown, the East rises as the West falls. You are gradually declining and you must accept the fact that China has grown and become strong. But how did it change in less than half a year? I find this question particularly interesting and amusing. In fact, this time for the Xi-Biden meeting, the Chinese side has been very proactive. It was not the US side that took the initiative to communicate with China about a potential Xi-Biden meeting. But it was the Chinese side that actively communicated with the US side, expressing a special hope for arranging the meeting. If we talk about Sino-US relations over the past year, it has truly been a tumultuous autumn because there was the Chinese spy balloon incident. Everyone knows that supposedly a Chinese weather balloon drifted into US airspace and was shot down by the US. After it was shot down, China severed the military communication channels between China and the US. At the same time, the US continuously increased sanctions on China, most notably in the semiconductor field by controlling chip sales to China. The US's slogan was not decoupling, but de-risking, because if these supply chains are all in China, or dependent on China in case of a real conflict between China and the US in the future, or if China takes action against Taiwan, the international community would have no leverage over China. Hence, de-risking was necessary. This led to the coldest point in China-US relations since they began diplomatic relationships. However, in the second half of the year, China began to make efforts to improve relations with the US. During Blinken's visit to China, the US agreed to Wang Yi's visit to the US later in the year. Then, in July, through various means, China kept signaling its hope to arrange a meeting between Xi Jinping and Biden during the APEC meeting. At this time, a US soldier named Kim, stationed in South Korea, helped the situation unintentionally. Kim was detained for a disciplinary violation and was sent back to the US for stricter punishment. However, he fled from the airport, joined a tour group to Panmunjom, and then defected to North Korea, where he was detained. This was a serious incident as it was unprecedented in the past 40 years for a US soldier to be detained by North Korea. The US was eager to rescue him, and North Korea claimed that the soldier was indignant about racial discrimination in the US military and thus defected. The US then turned to China for help, who then had a chat with North Korea, and after 70 days, in August or September, the soldier was released, which was very fortunate considering that many Americans have been detained in North Korea for years and even sent to work hard labor. The soldier was first picked up by someone from Sweden in North Korea, then brought to China where US officials were waiting, and finally flown out on a military plane. China helped the US in this matter to improve bilateral relations. In September, the meeting between Wang Yi and Sullivan in Malta was significant. They met in a small European country and talked for 12 hours over 2 days, which was pretty physically demanding for the 70-year-old Wang Yi. Media reports indicated that the discussions included the possibility of Xi Jinping visiting the US, which was finalized during Wang Yi's visit to the US in October. During his visit to the US, Wang Yi met with Biden. Everyone can take a look at the seating position of Wang Yi when he met Biden. It's identical to a few months ago when Blinken went to Beijing to meet with Xi Jinping. In both meetings, Xi Jinping sat in the middle, with Blinken and Wang Yi respectively sitting beside him. Don't think these details are meaningless. In diplomatic settings, these are common tactics in the power play between major countries. Remember a year ago, at the meeting in Bali, Biden was seen jogging towards Xi Jinping for a handshake while Xi was waiting, and Biden approached from the other side. This scene was repeatedly broadcasted in domestic news, making it seem like Biden was a low-ranking Chinese official reporting in to Xi Jinping. Even many who support the US on Twitter commented that the old man was disappointing, showing no regard for national dignity. I'll also tell you about the Japanese Prime Minister Kishida, who met Xi Jinping at the same summit last year. Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs had prepared several plans for this meeting. These plans included who initiates the handshake, who bows, and who walks over to whom. Why? To avoid being belittled during the meeting. For example, if Xi Jinping stands without bowing and Kishida bows, it would seem as if Japan is being dwarfed. The ministry had specifically developed several plans for these kinds of scenarios. You can see these fine details during the entire process of diplomatic negotiations. In October, Wang Yi's visit to the US set the stage for Xi and Biden's meeting. Several rounds of preliminary talks took place between China and the US. The US aimed to restore military exchanges and discuss military-related topics with China, while China's focus was primarily on economic issues. This is evident from the levels of representatives sent for these preliminary talks. For military matters, China sent the director of the Arms Control Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the US. But for economic issues, China recently sent He Lifeng, the vice premier of the State Council, to the US for a 4-day visit, accompanied by the Vice Minister of Commerce. The focus of China in improving Sino-US relations is clearly on economic issues. Why is this happening? That's the topic we're going to discuss next. It's about the drastic deterioration of China's entire economic situation this year, which ultimately led to a shift in China's policy and approach towards the China-US relationship. Let's take a look at the economic data for the first 3 quarters from January to September, published by the Chinese government. I downloaded this data from the Chinese government website, and I'll read it to you. For January to September, China's fiscal revenue included domestic VAT of 5.3454 trillion yuan, an increase of 60% year-on-year. However, this increase is due to a low base value last year, as there were more tax credits and refunds, so it doesn't really indicate much. Looking at other items, domestic consumption tax was 1.2465 trillion yuan, down 4.9% year-on-year. Corporate income tax was 3.3722 trillion yuan, down 7.4% year-on-year. The decline in corporate income tax is particularly significant because corporations only pay income tax if they are profitable. This decrease of 7.4% suggests a significant drop in the profitability of domestic companies. Personal income tax was 1.131 trillion yuan, down 0.4% year-on-year. A decline in the personal income tax suggests a decrease in the income tax of laborers. In many places in the past year, there have been issues with overdue wages, including for many civil servants, such as the Tianjin Public Transport and Automobile Group, which has had payments delayed for half a year. This is the most evident sign of economic phenomena affecting residents' incomes. In reality, the proportion of wage earners in China who pay personal income tax is less than 10%. But when their incomes decrease, you can imagine the dire economic situation of those with lower incomes. The year-over-year decrease in VAT and sales tax for import and export goods is 7.3%. Tariffs are at 190 billion, down 12% year-over-year. This is even more dangerous. As we all know, China's economy is driven by 3 main forces: investment, consumption, and foreign trade imports and exports. Now, with the year-over-year decrease of 7.3% in VAT and sales tax on foreign trade, imports and exports, and a 12% decrease in tariffs, this indicates a problem in China's foreign trade, one of the 3 main drivers of the economy. The refund of taxes on imports and exports fell by 4.6%. The urban maintenance and construction tax grew by 3.2%, but this is different since it doesn't come from manufacturing enterprises. The vehicle purchase tax increased by 5%, a rare growth, but its base value is too low. only 200 billion in total. Stamp duty decreased by 11.2% year over year, a significant drop, especially in securities transaction stamp duty, which fell by 30% down to 11,555 billion yuan, as this year's stamp duty was halved and the overall securities market was not active. The environmental protection tax decreased by 3.7%. Only the vehicle and vessel tax and the tobacco tax grew by 0.2%, but this percentage is very low, with a base value of only 90 billion. Meanwhile, all public budget expenditures are significantly increasing. For example, education spending grew by 4.3% year over year, science and technology spending by 3.3%, social security and employment spending by 8.2%, and so on. This indicates that this year's fiscal health is seriously deteriorating and a budget deficit is now inevitable. Let's take a look at October. There's a data point from October that's even more frightening. It's about our foreign trade this year. By October, the data finally was showing an increase after declining by 0.2% in the first 9 months of the year. Chinese foreign trade exports used to be very strong, but this year is rare with a continuous decline in the first 9 months. However, in the 10th month, there was a turnaround, reaching a positive growth of 0.03%. Truthfully, I even suspect that these figures are fabricated. But within these figures, there are some branch data that are particularly worth analyzing. Specifically, China's exports to its 3 main trading partners, Europe, the USA, and Japan, have seen significant declines, with decreases around 5% to 7%. This is a startling figure. Yet, at the same time, imports from these 3 countries are actually increasing. This means China is increasing imports from these countries, but exports are not improving. What does this imply? It means that these countries do not lack a need for Chinese goods, but the current political environment in China and the de-risking policies of these countries towards China are limiting Chinese exports, which has now decisively impacted China's overall foreign trade situation. Regarding China's economy, the overall impact it's seeing this year has finally made the Chinese policymakers realize that their approach is not working. Another figure to note is that in October, our direct foreign investment hit a negative $11.8 billion, a phenomenon not seen since 1998. This indicates a monthly net negative in direct foreign investments, suggesting that a lot of foreign investors are pulling out of China. They are not particularly willing to invest in China anymore. Therefore, China is eager to improve its political relations with the USA and to rebuild American companies' confidence in China. This includes an arrangement during Xi Jinping's attendance at APEC, where a dinner with American businessmen is planned. Seats at this dinner are being sold for $2,000 each. If a business person spends $40,000, they can buy a table with 8 seats and also get a chance to sit at the same table as Xi Jinping. Why? Right now, China needs to encourage of American businessmen to stay. If they leave, the economy is simply screwed. This includes the current discussions between China and the USA, hoping that amidst unresolved political differences, economic stability can be maintained and economic cooperation can continue for mutual development and growth. This is China's biggest hope and objective in the upcoming Xi-Biden meeting. Of course, whether this goal can be achieved or not, I don't know, because the Xi-Biden meeting hasn't started yet. But what I want to say is that China has now shed its aggressive wolf warrior diplomatic image purely because its economy is deteriorating. I've said this many times in the past. For a government like China's, it's only economic factors that can bring about change in their demeanor. If they're really hurt, they'll know this approach isn't working. So, they start to behave and keep a low profile. If this round of US sanctions against China doesn't achieve this goal, and their economy continues to grow robustly, do you think Xi Jinping will maintain this low-profile attitude in his meeting with Biden? No, he won't. But conversely, if the US agrees to gradually lift chip sanctions during their meeting with China, and China develops over the next few years, will they continue this way? I don't think so. The wolf warrior diplomacy will return. Why? Because China's overall policy approach is no longer like that of the Deng Xiaoping era, which was centered on economic construction. The current leader has become a pragmatist. When he feels strong and when the economy is growing, he completely disregards the previous focus on economic growth. He strikes out in all directions, engaging in wolf warrior diplomacy, confronting the US, Japan, and Europe. But when he feels the pain of sanctions, he starts to gradually pull back, So this is just a tactical dialing down. In my view, understanding that this is the reality of how China plays politics can guide the development of a robust plan for dealing with them. As for how China and the US will play their game after the Xi-Biden meeting, and whether the summit will achieve the goals each side desires, we'll continue to analyze these questions after the Xi-Biden meeting takes place. That's all for today. Thank you.